today we are watching A Siege Upon Us, and I'm pretty sure this has to do with Ninetales and everything that's going to be coming up here with the next patch. So let's check it out.
It's our last episode of the quarter. The patch is just around the corner. And speaking of which, what's in this quarter?
The wipe. Did you guys get the news about the wipe, by the way? Now, wipe is coming, and that's always a scary thing for citizens.
There's Alpha 3.17.2 anyway. Let's recap in this quarter's patch report. Up first, let's start with some character items and these new variants of the RRS Specialist Heavy Armor coming to Alpha 3.17.2, including this traditional camo variant, an Arctic variant, and perhaps my personal favorite, the radiation-resistant Fallout variant. There's also a new Grey Cat backpack specifically for the purpose of collecting salvage in preparation for when that day arrives. And for subscribers, here's a blast from Star Citizen's past with a look at the exploration-themed vintage spacesuit commemorating RSI's first commercial spaceship, the Zeus. Be sure you keep an eye out for that when it becomes available in the coming months.
Wow. Wow, man. It's very Tesla. It's very Tesla.
And in the space above Microtech and ArcCorp, you'll discover a number of new space stations being added that will make travel to and from these Stanton Classics easier than ever before, while adding additional visual flair through gas clouds at the Lagrange points, similar to those found around other planets. With so much of the focus on the upcoming Pyro these days, it's important to keep refining and improving the locations of Stanton, and that includes the addition of more medical rooms at Grimhex, because with all the recent player pirate activity, it was causing a bit of a traffic jam at times. Adding additional hangar exteriors for rest stops, enabling the addition of more small and medium hangars for ships to these locations, and the ability to summon and store a greater variety of spacecraft along the way. And down on the surface of our planets, the beginnings of our derelict outpost rollout, starting with these relics of past life in the verse on Microtech.
Ooh.
Designed to create more opportunities for exploration, missions, loot, and the like, 3.17.2 will find several here as more are added in subsequent patches throughout the remainder of this year. And speaking of missions, Alpha 3.17.2 has additions and refinements galore, starting with the revamp of the Combat Assist Service Beacon system, aiming to provide a more natural progression for players from fighting tiny Aurora all the way up to massive Idrises, or Idri, or Idro, I don't know. There's also more collect and delivery mission progression for the dedicated criminal element and those who maybe just want a little more scratch by stepping just outside the lines of the law sometimes. And then there's the new Crashed Reclaimer Derelict Settlements, which come with a variety of new missions requiring players.
Yes, this is what we were talking about last week that I so eloquently tripped over my own tongue for the past 5 minutes in the intro. This is what I was talking about. This is great. The artwork on this is fantastic. I love what they're doing. However, what we talked about is we would like to see Rex being dynamic and that they would happen naturally amongst the player base. So I know that's a long way away, but man, I would really love a game to offer that. I don't think there's really been a game that's offered it in a way that's been so convincing that I've been like, wow, I truly feel so immersed in a world and the assets around me stack up in such a way that I could naturally do something like this. Okay, that is a crazy ask. That is way crazy, right? I don't think it's that crazy these days. Like everything I'm seeing from Unreal Engine, all the tech coming down, like from NVIDIA, everything that I've been watching lately on the morning show in regards to VR. We watched Thrill Seeker's channel talking about how he put that Ready Player One setup with it was just phenomenal. The guy literally had an orgasm on. He had like on the visor, on the nose, he could smell anything. He could like everything that hit him with bullets, he could feel. He had a haptic suit on. He had some weird thing custom made that he could run in place on. Anyway, that'll be on the channel. I don't think the tech to be asking for what I'm asking is that far out anymore. It used to be like if I would ask where I could take assets in a game and I could just stack them in such a manner that I could make my own base of sorts. Maybe that not this elaborate, obviously. I mean, let's be real. We're not going to be making this behind us. But like we can make ourselves like little outposts or little bunkers off of ships that are like derelict ships. And you could drag them and pull them with the physics and things that they already have in the game, right? Like think about how cool that would be to be able to just essentially make your own outpost. You know, like I get it. We're gonna have ships that are gonna do it. We're gonna have like little habitations. I understand what's planned for the game. I've been following this for 5 years. I get it. But in addition to that, what's planned, I think what would be really cool is if we could just like take little, stack like portions of salvage up and use them as shields and like create little bunker areas. And, especially with FPS, are you kidding me? Like FPS situations. And I know there's going to be plenty of people out there that are going to be like, oh, DG, feature creep, whatever. And I understand that's going to be there, but I'm talking way in the future. I just want this game to eventually be that. I want this game to have VR support. I want this game to really offer what it is that we imagined it to be when we started out with this project, which is just like a limitless experience,
To explore,
that would be
attack,
great, Brixie. That'd
defend,
be great, dude.
and otherwise experience the majesty of these fantastic
Great
new
art,
locations
great
made possible
artwork.
with help from the next major milestone from our AI team, Dynamic Planetary Nav Mesh, which
Yes.
will allow mission designers to begin adding NPC life to not just these new derelicts, but any other curiosities you
Good.
might find on the surface of Stanton's planets
All we
and
need to do is
moons.
fix AI and we're okay.
And if you thought the crashed reclaimers were the only new derelicts to explore in Alpha,
I also want animals. I want wildlife. I definitely think that having wildlife is also very important. They need to do what they're doing now to be able to put NPC units on terrain, because obviously we're talking about Squadron 42 and missions. We're also talking about dynamic missions that we saw at CitizenCon last year. We saw these units walking outside on buildings. We saw that. I'm not quite sure exactly how much work they had to put into that presentation. Probably a lot. Probably had to fudge a few things, but for the most part, they look like game assets that were moving in game, functioning in some type of manner that was slightly different than what we normally see from these bunker missions right now. Currently, I would love to see NPCs be able to interact just the way that it is now without being so goddamn buggy. I would like more of the focus to be on the AI now and the actions and interactions that you have with NPC characters. I would like that done now. I would like that work done now before we're worried about dynamic terrain and dynamic map mesh, navigation mesh, which will be nice. Hopefully we can have this navigation mesh translate over to a GPS type system that we can use so we know where we're at on the ground. Not quite sure if that's how it's going to act, but it would be cool if that particular code that's being inserted in there would also help us with navigation, a GPS unit, hell, even a compass, something so that, directionally when your feet on the ground, wheels on the ground, you can tell where you're at, That would be nice as well.
317.2, be sure you head out into the farthest reaches of Stanton and discover for yourself a host of new mission content linked to these brand new space-bound derelicts included in this quarter's patch as well. Then finally, the big mammer jammer dynamic event of them all so far, the Siege of Orion is bringing with it an FPS event the likes of which has never been attempted in Star Citizen, pitting players against the criminally industrialist Ninetales in a battle to decide how Orion should be pronounced. Is it Orion or Horizon? Potato, tomato, we may never know. But the battle across this new expansion to the Orion landing zone will be an involved one with many fronts. Can you tell I recorded the patch report at a different time? But while we're talking about the Siege of Orion, while we do want to leave most of its twists and turns for you to discover on your own, we did ask Luke and Elliot from the mission feature team for some helpful hints to this year's major event. Let's see what they had to say in a segment that we're calling Siege of Orion, Top 10 Pro Tips.
This event is like nothing you've experienced in Star Citizen so far.
Welcome to the stream.
You will need to prepare. You will need ammo, weapons, armor. Otherwise, you will not make it out alive.
For this event, we have a IFI, which is the Identify a Friend or Foe
What's
inverter.
up, Kill Devil?
And basically what that does is that's going to turn the platform's turrets onto the side of the Ninetales. It also affects the restricted area, so you won't be able to fly your ship in.
These new platforms are huge, and we have done the best we can to sign these and put maps up all over the place that show you, like, you are here.
You'll find signage all around that shows you where shuttles are to get between the islands. However,
they are slightly different to how shuttles currently work. They're more like elevators in that you have to call them to your location, and when you get in, you have to send them to the next location. So be aware of that.
I'm kind of
you can't get to all the islands.
I'm kind of mixed on this, you know, because it is fucking confusing sometimes depending on the mission, you know, other than the clothing, you know, like, but I don't know. Like that's a really good question for the stream and for people on YouTube, you know, and I saw it in the comment here by Limitless, who said, "Oh no, did you hear that? Friend or foe checks?" And I'm not quite sure how many of you are for that or how many of you are against it. I know there's a bit of confusion depending upon when, you know, how old a player or gamer is in Star Citizen on how to go about these missions. I think they're going to try and dumb it down a little bit so that like beginner players know what the fuck's going on. I don't know. I personally would like to see, right? Like, Limitless is thinking the same way I am. Brian's kind of thinking the same way I am as well. And it's like, I kind of want it harder. Like, here's the thing. If you want to have the ability to do this, maybe some type of tech or equipment that you could buy in the game, some type of asset that would maybe help you out identifying these targets better, you know, make it worth, you know, put a value on it. And for people that, you know, want it, maybe purchase it in the game with your creds and be able to, you know, have an additional layer so that you can tell. I'm not quite sure how to go about it because it's a balancing act. It's always a balancing act with game design, you know. Personally, I would just like it hardcore. Like, too bad you just shot your friend. You didn't know he was your friend. You know. There's your crime report. you know, I know people can't handle that level of hardcore. Call me old school, but that's kind of like the gaming that I like.
Via the shuttles, but we've put enough toys around to allow you to get there a different way.
So there are various locked containers all over the island. You'll need a code to get into them.
What's up, Cujo?
Make sure to check them all because they have a multitude of surprises. We've added a maze in this somewhere. Just remember that you can't jump as far when you're wearing heavy armor. This event might take a while, so don't forget to loot your fallen enemies.
We decided we weren't going to hold the player's hand in this mission. There are a lot of optional secret objectives that players will have to figure out for themselves.
Okay. If they don't glitch out.
With combat assist service beacons, illegal collect and delivery missions, a variety of new missions and NPC opportunities embedded in the new Reclaimer derelicts, the Siege of Orion, and more, Alpha 3.17.2 may have the numbering of just a little tiny point patch, but there's a whole bunch of new gameplay packed within. Now that about does it for this quarter's ISC, but keep an eye on the robertsspaceindustries.com website for details on the release of Alpha 3.17.2 while we're on our regularly scheduled hiatus. And when we come back, maybe we'll do so from inside the new performance capture stage being built right next door. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee, closing out once more from the very noisy 9th floor of the Manchester.
Says, hey, DJ, I miss seeing you live, brother, but gotta sleep. Have a great ISC and after party. Will do, Windlord. Thanks so much for stopping in here and resubscribing. All money is going to our friend Grizz, who is a member of our community. That's what I sound like most times on stream. Thank you, Santa Claus. Appreciate you, buddy. Windlord and Santa Claus, that subscription money will go to St. Grizz. Thank you. Makana DG. Thank you, Makana DG, for that proper alert. All proceeds are going to our friend tonight, St. Grizz, who is in a bad situation. Let's polka. Let's be happy. We're raising money for him. We're raising money up for him. There you go, St. Grizz. We're helping him out. He came back from a trip and his house was underwater or in a flood. He said a little bit in the VIP chat just recently, and I was like, dude, I'm so sorry to hear that. So we're all money on tonight's show and tomorrow morning's stream is going to go over to St. Grizz, and we're going to help him out. He's in a hotel currently dealing with all the fun that's involved with that. I couldn't even imagine that. That would be horrible.